Big news, Samsung. What do you got, Will?
It's making cheaper phones for India.
That is a smart move, a big move and a smart move. They've got a new brand coming out called the M, which apparently stands for millennials.
Yeah, that's a weird one, eh?
It's a term that has mixed reactions, but it's definitely a group of individuals who love their smartphones.
Every girl in the picture is locked into her phone.
At least it's very modern.
Yes, and thank goodness it's just an M instead of millennials. Imagine the Galaxy Millennial. The M series are set, according to Samsung, to redefine the affordable and mid-level price smartphone, specifically in India, but eventually, potentially, globally, worldwide. The crazy thing that's been happening, the good thing that's been happening, is that a lot of innovation has been going on in the mid-range and even the low end of the smartphone market, because somehow that became the competitive space because of markets like China and India in this particular case. So they're going to put out two devices, the M10 and M20, which are going to be around like $150 to $200 USD equivalent. So with those price points, it appears that Samsung is squarely targeting the Xiaomi type companies. They're going after the Redmi brands, and they're going after the price to performance ratio concept. They're bringing their A game, their most aggressive game, to the mid-range. Imagine this. They're saying this device here is going to have an Infinity V display. That's a teardrop style bezel-less display. And this device, the M20, will supposedly have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is the biggest Samsung has ever put in a device. Now imagine the biggest battery they've ever used going into a device that's going to be around $200. What does that tell you about what's happening in the industry?
It's changing rapidly, and if you can get decent specs for $200, can't go wrong there.
No.
What if they run Android One?
Well,
That's
that's what I'd be looking for.
Yeah.
Android One would be great. I don't know if Samsung is going to be particularly interested in that. Obviously, Xiaomi does it, but they don't do it in the Redmi brand as far as I know. So because of the branding, the millennial aspect that will likely go along with that package, I'm guessing they're going to try to have something with the software that encompasses that branding, like that speaks to millennials. So I'm not too optimistic about the software. I think there's probably going to be maybe some stuff in there, a little bloat, possibly,
I was just gonna
a little
say.
millennial bloat. Nonetheless, the spec list, the target, the motivation to go into this space for a player like Samsung is a really big deal. Like you said, it's an indication of a shift in the market. It's delivering more for less. This is increasingly happening in this space as the number of players in the space has increased. Scroll down a little bit more. And the reason that it's important coming from Samsung is because they are such an integrated company. They are responsible for manufacturing screens, various connectivity inside of these devices,
building components from the ground up,
processors, and so on. In many cases, other smartphone makers rely on Samsung to deliver certain components for their eventual products, or those other makers are relying on other brands besides Samsung to deliver those components. Since Samsung can manufacture pretty much an entire smartphone, presumably they can be really competitive in this market. And maybe they can play in this $200 space without losing too much money, because there has been speculation that some of the major players with this crazy cost to performance ratio are actually going out of their own pockets a little bit in order to deliver that. So it makes Samsung a really scary competitor in the space. I'm excited for this potential M20, M10 as well. It's really amazing to see what will be possible in the coming year at these price points.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. Like, Samsung has an infrastructure already built for phones, so they can essentially make the logistics for a cheaper phone like that, no problem.
Now, as of right now, the story is indicating that this device will be targeting India, but I think because Samsung is such a global player, there's a chance, possibly even a likelihood, that this will branch out from that market into others. And I think that would be a major win for customers elsewhere in the world also. So if you're not in the Indian market, this is still interesting. And I think it's only a matter of time before people in Western Europe, North America, start to see better specs being delivered at a lower price point.
Yeah.
One thing it does do, though, is it possibly cannibalizes the high end of the market. If you have this Infinity V display, a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, I think this device will have 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage. Is that going to be good enough for most people? If you can have that type of experience with a brand like Samsung at 150 or 200.
Yeah, would you get the Note 10?
I mean, it's a much
next
tougher
premium phone?
argument. So it looks like Samsung's willing to make that sacrifice because they understand to a degree the increasing competition and the fact that they have to have some kind of play. Now, what the other brands have done, Xiaomi with Redmi, with Pocophone, they created things that look like completely different brands. Samsung didn't do that. Samsung's just going to call it the M series, Galaxy M. There's a disadvantage of potentially cannibalizing their higher end products, but in a weird way, there's an advantage on the low end of having a recognizable brand like Samsung and Galaxy without the price tag to match. So you get a little cachet.
Something that's reliable.
Exactly.
That they can depend on.
You're getting a brand name for a low ticket price. This will be interesting to see how it shakes out. All good for tech buyers in the audience. All good for them. They continue to get more for less.
When
I'm
there's
happy about that.
competition, everyone wins.
That's it.